Welcome to the 615 Locker Room Podcast. I'm your host, Wormy, with my co host, Uncle Matt here, and we talk about Nashville sports here. So, last week's game, I think that it kind of worked out perfectly because I watched the first half and then turned it off and like didn't pay attention. And then I know you kind of caught the second half of it. Um, what a terrible 15 minutes that the three goals conceded against us. Um, it was just that was a poor time, and we had a hard time coming back from that and sort of finding the momentum. Just because, like, obviously, if you're not even 30 minutes into a game, pretty much, and you're down 3-0, spirits are going to be low because that's a hard comeback, even if you're a great team. Um, One of the things that I think is not to really worry about from watching it is that I feel like even from the first episode that we recorded here, we kind of expected stuff like this to happen a lot in the way that we were getting scored on. We are kind of just getting beat uh, on the transition from the heavy offense to the defense, and so we're I feel like we're only now seeing that, which is a better sign than what I was kind of anticipating myself. Um, but it was a hard watch. You never want to see that happen. I turned it off after the first half. I won't lie. I was like, there's better things to do with my time. I went and watched Matt's stream for a while. Um, so Matt, what do you think about the second half? What you've watched of the first half?
Yeah, and way I'll kind of frame it. This is a tool I used to use in coaching. Is we used to say we'd try to do like a good news, bad news, good news sandwich. Like you start with the good stuff, a little bit of the good stuff, jam all the bad stuff right there in the middle, and then you finish off the sandwich with the good stuff, just so you're not in it on a sour note. And I kind of think the game itself, in a lot of ways, was a good news, bad news, good news sandwich. If you kind of look at it, because first 10 minutes like looked as good as we've looked all season, but it was kind of the story of the season so far. Yeah, we created tons of chances. We're on the front foot. We're aggressive going on the attack, but just can't find the right final ball, right final finish. Just can't get that goal over the line. We're creating chances, just not scoring. And then of course that disastrous 15 minutes comes. We're just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Just looked like we completely lost our composure. Defense was all over the place. Attacking wise, couldn't put two passes together to keep possession and take the pressure off the defense. Just as bad of a 15 minutes as we've seen Nashville SC play all season long, and it was kind of weird. It was kind of like my concerns for the season, just the defense getting exposed with the more open attacking style of play that we were kind of implementing this year. I was thinking it would happen more over like a full 90 minutes. Like we'd see games where, we might win 4-3 or we might lose 4-2. I wasn't fully expecting it to all come apart in like that compact of a period of time. And it's kind of like you mentioned, when things go that badly that quickly, it kind of, even though it was relatively early in the game, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard thing to bounce back from because just it kills your confidence, it kills your momentum. You have to try so many different things and change your plan when that happens. That 15 minutes kind of really spoiled the game. But to kind of wrap up the good news sandwich, I thought, we saw BJ kind of have to change his game plan for the first time this season. Kind of the first kind of got hit with a curveball on his end, and he came back with something different other than just kind of making some substitutions, maybe asking players to do something a little different. We went with a full formation change pretty much from the second half on, where we went to kind of a back three, back five, whatever you want to call it, set back a little more, played a little bit more defensively than what we've seen Nashville SC do so far this season. And, it kept Seattle from really kind of getting too much more into the game, got us back kind of on the front foot, gave us a few more chances to get something going. Overall ended the way it ended 3-0, so it didn't work, to the effect of making a full comeback, but it kind of stymied, Seattle from just completely making us look bad at a certain point in time. But also showed me, hey, I'm happy to see BJ Callahan has a few extra tricks in his sleeve. We've got some changes that we can make if we need to. It was kind of funny to see him do that because I believe he had a quote in the build up to the match in the pre-match press conference where they asked him, hey, you're going on the road to Seattle. That's a tough road game. Are you going to do anything different with your game plan? Because typically in soccer, just across the board, teams tend to like play more defensively when they go on the road because it's a little bit harder, especially in MLS where you're traveling insanely far. Like Nashville to Seattle is about as far as you could possibly go. And he kind of said, no, that's what we play with our principles. We play with our, strategy, to change who we are wouldn't be the way we did it. And worked for about 10 minutes, couldn't get a goal. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, maybe we should have changed a little bit. Maybe we should have thought out that. And he did it. He made the adjustments and, it kind of leveled things out, So I thought that was a good positive sign that we're not just a one trick pony. He does have other ideas. He can kind of adjust when needed to be adjusted. Unfortunately, I think, had that whole 15 minutes not just been the way it was, maybe that adjustment comes if we're only like 1-0 down at halftime. Could be a different match, but when you just completely lose it there, there's only so much you can do at that point. I was kind of thinking, it was interesting, we're waiting to see when we're going to get Zimmerman back, the concussion. You never really know when you're going to be able to come back from one of those things. But I think, Jackson Palacios or Palacios, I probably mispronounced that. I think he's played well in place of Zimmerman. I think, overall, I thought where we missed Zimmerman more in this match than just like the pure defending was, he's the captain, he's the leader. We've seen, on social media, they post a lot of his speeches. He's the guy who gets the team together. I feel like after the first, second goal in that situation, he's bringing the team together. He's saying, hey guys, settle down. This happens. We know who we are. Let's get back on the same page. Let's get back to work. And we don't maybe have that full just loss of composure through that period. And maybe we can get out of that space down only 1-0, 2-0, not 3-0, because I think he would have kind of got everybody to settle down, get their composure back, get reorganized. Whereas, without him out there wasn't, Hani's a pretty good leader to a certain degree, but there's nobody else who I really see kind of being the traditional captain, kind of rallying the troops, kind of saying, hey, calm down, we're fine, don't worry about it. You know what you can do, kind of get back over it. It was kind of, I think the team kind of had a moment where they kind of came together after the third goal, but at that point it's like, this thing's falling apart. It's a little too late there. And so I think that was where we maybe missed Walker for the first time. I don't want to say you always miss a player of his caliber, but I mean, that was where it was noticeable, something he would have brought that maybe we didn't have right there was just the leadership in that kind of moment to kind of get the composure back, get the team back under control when things were spiraling a little bit. But, it's weird. We've had such a positive season so far. I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over a 3-0 loss to a pretty good team in Seattle all the way over there at their home stadium. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the pregame presser with BJ because I think he used as an example man, it'd suck if we lost 3-0 or I forgot how he worded it, but it was something like that. And it's like, oh man, what did you think about the lineup? I thought it was interesting, having Eddie off, come off the bench. I saw a lot of people upset about that, but uh, looking into it, I mean, obviously, I think we talked a little bit about it last week in the sense of he was one yellow card away from suspension, which he's a player that gets is going to get a yellow card probably. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then also I've seen the argument that he just needed rest due to how much that guy runs. What do you think there? Which one do you line up more with? That's why he was coming off at the halftime.
I would guess, because I don't know. I haven't seen anything where they've come out and kind of said anything one way or the other about what the decision was. But I would guess it's probably a combination of both. Because I mean, I've seen teams over the years, kind of when you're looking at a scenario, a long season, you kind of look at your schedule and kind of increments, and kind of if you're BJ Callahan, if you're Nashville SC, if you're looking, what game do you want to prioritize getting the best possible result? I don't want to say Seattle was a throwaway game, but you go all the way to the West Coast and lose to Seattle, that's a game you don't want to ever lose a match, but that's one where you can kind of say, hey, that's a good team. A loss on the road, that's not the worst result for Nashville SC. Chicago coming in this week to Geodis Park, not getting a result there would be a lot worse than the other way around. So I think there was a degree to which rest, also avoiding the suspension, just prioritizing the Chicago home match over the Seattle match, probably kind of all worked together to make that decision there. And I mean, the personality of Eddie, I don't know, it seems like he's a guy who's you're going to have a hard time swallowing that pill and being like, yeah, no, I want to be out of the field. I want to keep running. But, another thing, that's also become a big thing in sports. I see a lot of coaches talk about it is there's sports science where they're tracking players and they'll often say stuff like, oh, this player is entering the red zone. He has to rest. It's not even like a coaching decision at certain point in time, depending on how certain teams are running their medical departments, where the sports scientists will come to the coach or the physios or whatever you want to call them, will come to the coach and say, hey, X players got to rest. We've got the data, we've got the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, that'll say he's at high risk for like, a muscle injury if you keep pushing him at this rate or something like that. So, don't know what all information they had at their disposal. Don't know what all kind of data and stuff they're using behind the scenes on those type of decisions. But I mean, he's an exciting player. He's been, one of the highlights of the season. So you never want to see him out of the lineup. But at the same time, you kind of look at the contributing factors and the outside stuff, and you kind of understand it. And also, Yazbek probably needed to run out. He's kind of been on the bench the last couple of games since Brugman's come into the lineup. So it's kind of a luxury to have that kind of depth to be able to say, hey, you know, up to this season, just about. I think, when we had our best 11 available, if nobody was injured, you probably were just saying we're probably going to roll with the best 11. There wasn't a whole lot of flexibility in chopping and changing where you could give a guy a rest, outside of a player being injured. So to have that kind of luxury to say we've got the extra players, we can make a decision like that and give him a rest right there. I think that's a good thing. I want to see him out there as much as possible, but it is what it is. And he could have made a difference in the game. His pace, running around, breaking up play. Maybe in that 15-minute period, he's cutting out a pass that we don't see. Maybe he's running around, hustling around, breaking things up a little bit more. But he could have played. I don't think you can play every minute of every single game in a season at the rate he plays. So he's going to have rest. He's going to have breaks as the season goes. And so we got to find a way to play without him if that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you definitely, even with we talked a little bit at NBA last week, but like even with basketball, I mean you got to rest guys a lot, and you just got to, as a manager, kind of precisely pick which ones you're like, okay, I'm okay with this result not being as like it wouldn't be the end of the world. They actually had to make like a rule in the NBA because I think the players decide versus the coach on if they want to sit out. So they had to like make a rule that was you can't sit out this amount of games or else you'll be docked. You won't qualify for like the end of the year awards or something like that. It's a little tidbit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think overall, I mean, I'm still confident in the guys. Seeing depth is always, that's the biggest thing I think we can preach this season or praise because I mean, I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot where or I haven't seen a whole lot as my time as a fan where I if someone comes on I'm not like, oh, here we go. Here's the shit housing, but now it's like okay, this is a guy that can do his job well, and I'm confident. So I think
Mm-hmm.
having that as a takeaway is good. And Palacios, I feel like just needs to click in a little bit better, but I feel like he held his own for what it was. We got to see Applewhite come on, which that was super exciting, and hopefully we can see more of him in better scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was one of the positives to take from the game is seeing him get to make his debut and come out there and all the talk, all the word coming out of the people that cover the team is that he is the one they're kind of looking at, especially from the academy right now, as potentially having a big future. So getting him those first minutes, like we kind of talked about it during the live stream I did during the game. Not the best scenario. Like obviously, you'd rather see him get a big, oh, we're coming in a blowout at home type moment. So, but I, it was a low pressure situation at the point in the game he came in where we kind of were already the game was gone. Gave him the chance to, just run around, get some minutes, get a feel for it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more of him as the season goes on. And I'm excited to see it because all the hype's there. So if it's delivers, maybe by the time of the end of the season, it's him and Walker playing side by side by the end of the season. That'd be pretty cool to see. That's one of the exciting things about MLS and soccer in general. It's like the academy setup, where you got your homegrown players that are working up from the time they're like sometimes 15 years old coming to the team. Obviously I'm a Manchester United fan. That's one of the big things about their history is that they've had one of the best academies in soccer. They've got like some crazy streak of like they've had an academy of player in the match day squad for some insane amount of like years and games and stuff like that. And that's like a big part of their heritage is that there's always Manchester born and bred players in the team, whether they're starting on the bench, they're always there, they're always available. So, building that up and starting to develop that for Nashville is going to be a cool thing to watch over the next few years.
So yeah, I didn't know that little tidbit about Man U. That's pretty neat. Um, you mentioned your live stream and that we were talking on it. While I was in there, there was something in the title that I had no clue about, and that was that you're also watching WrestleMania. I've never been a wrestling person. The only thing that I know about it is The Rock, John Cena, and I watched the Iron Claw. Apart from that, I'm gonna need your help here to talk about it. I feel like it's relevant, but I have no clue.
Well, you kind of checked two of the boxes of some of the people who were kind of involved in WrestleMania. One of the big stories for this year was John Cena after 20 years of being the ultimate smiley, happy baby face. I'm never going to be a bad guy. I do all this stuff with the Make a Wish Foundation. I'm just too, always going to. I don't care if the fans hate me. I'm always going to be the good guy. He finally turned heel. He finally became a bad guy with The Rock. The Rock was kind of seemed like he was the one pulling the strings and convincing John Cena to turn evil. But then The Rock kind of never showed back up after the initial moment, and it's kind of been all about John Cena just saying, "Oh, you fans booed me all these years when I was trying to be the good guy, trying to be the best guy." So that was kind of the big story of the show, was that he's now the first time ever in his entire career as a heel. And it's at a weird time because he announced that this is going to be the last year that he will actively be a professional wrestler. He's going to fully transition out of wrestling into back into the acting that he's been kind of doing for the last several years. So this was kind of his last run, his last chance to make a big impact, and to be a bad guy for the first time ever is kind of significant. And he was also going for the. This is kind of a fake record, but I mean, everything in wrestling's a little fake, obviously. But yeah, the officially recognized record by WWE is that Ric Flair had the most world titles with 16, and John Cena was tied with him with 16. John Cena was challenging for the world title, won it, so he's now the 17-time world champion officially has the record for the most world championships of anybody in WWE history. It's all a little whatever wonky, but so it wasn't the best WrestleMania. There's some good stuff there, there's some good bad stuff there. It was entertaining, it was fun. It's always fun to watch wrestling. I've been into wrestling since the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the original early days of The Rock when he was first becoming The Rock. That kind of stuff is what hooked me in, and it's not something I regularly watch all the time. I don't watch Monday Night Raw every single week, but I keep up with it. I know what's going on, and WrestleMania is kind of like the Super Bowl of wrestling. So it's casual NFL fans, non-NFL fans, everybody's tuning in for the Super Bowl. WrestleMania is kind of that way, where even if I haven't watched for a few months, I'm going to watch WrestleMania and see what's going on. So it was a so-so show. Not the best, not the worst. It was fine.
Is WrestleMania like once a year thing?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. It used to be kind of late March. Now it's kind of shifted to where it's a little bit more April-y,
what
late April.
number
They
are they on?
actually, this year, this was the 41st WrestleMania. So they've been doing it, I think, pretty much my entire life. It kind of weirdly has tracked my lifetimes, which I'm only 37, so that's actually not true. I'm 37. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm 37. So yeah, they've been doing it longer than I've been live. Wink. But yeah, it was. I watched it. I think the first one I watched was WrestleMania 14, which is the one where Stone Cold Steve Austin won his first title. And even the years I haven't been following wrestling that much, I've always managed to watch WrestleMania, especially because now it's just on Peacock, so it's not even like used to be. You had to buy it on pay-per-view for like $40 a month if you wanted to get it, but now it's just there. It's on Peacock. It's easy to watch, easy to tune in for. So I kind of keep up with it that way. But yeah, it was something this year.
So last week, all this Nico University of Tennessee stuff was really blowing up. He's at UCLA now, which we knew that he couldn't transfer to another SEC school. We were kind of curious where he was going. UCLA was rumored. They can have him. That's fine. And then I also saw that his brother is transferring or committed or whatever to UCLA as well, which I don't really keep up with that with his brother too much. But that's interesting. It's an interesting move. We'll see how they play. UCLA is like he has a bigger market for NIL and stuff like that. But he took a pay cut. I think he's making like half of what he made uh, from Tennessee, from what I read. So and then also the damage to his reputation. I just it wasn't a good move. I don't think he'll be on a bigger stage, and that's about the only positive I see from it. Well, I mean, How do you think this turned out?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to see, UT be the loser in this scenario, I think they kind of, probably came out okay because, it seems like all, and I've seen stuff where it's like, people are like, well, it's not so much him as it's his dad and everything like that. But even if it's his dad, whatever it is, if you got that type of deal where it's like a guy who's trying to like finagle more money, whether it's the dad, whether it's the player. I also read some stuff today that seemed like one of the things is like the dad, maybe this is tied to what you said, his brother was trying to get other players that he was connected to on NIL deals at Tennessee. So he's trying to use some leverage there to get more money for his quote unquote clients, whatever you want to call it, which, I guess he probably takes a percentage, I'm sure. But it just seemed like it was a bad scenario, a bad like spot to be in. And, for whatever he was rated coming out of high school, I don't think his first year as a starter at UT was anything that anybody's going to be sad to see going away. And for most UT fans I've seen, it ended up being like basically a swap deal where you're getting UCLA's quarterback, and I saw like a lot of UT fans who were kind of like excited about him. Like he's not like high powered, throw it all over the field type guy. But like as a Vandy fan, I actually took pride for the first time. I saw a few people actually tweeting, this dude might be our Diego Pavia. And I'm like, oh my God, if UT's like hoping they've got like Vandy style quarterback, what is this world becoming? I cannot get excited about that. But, it was weird because like the whole time I thought like for him to have gone back and tried to get more money from UT, I thought he had to have had like a bigger deal on the table somewhere else because it just seemed like so stupid. Like if you don't have a better offer somewhere else, what's your leverage based on your performance? And I guess it does seem to now have turned out. It just looked like they overplayed their hand and just thought they had more leverage than they did and everything like that. And the one thing I keep seeing people bring up, and I don't know how much this, I think he's from California, so I don't think this really snuck up on him, but the other part of like losing some of the money he got in NIL from UT to go to UCLA is also no state income tax here. You do have state income tax in California, so you're getting paid less. You're giving back more to the state too, so it's all kind of wonky. But it's like you said, maybe there's other stuff there. Where being in LA, it's a bigger media market. Maybe there's more opportunities to sort of add more as he goes, as opposed to the initial contract or whatever. But I don't know. I could also see it being a scenario where like I always think when like players, for whatever reason, it hits me more. Like I was listening to actually an interview with Marcus Mariota today. He was on Bussin' with the Boys, which is like podcast that like two former Titans players do, and they were kind of talking about his career, like coming, and he's like from Hawaii, and they were talking about like him coming from Hawaii as a kid to Oregon where he played, and then coming to Nashville to play for the Titans, and just like the culture shock of those transitions. Is like, yeah, that is kind of crazy to have grown up in Hawaii and then all of a sudden you get dropped in Nashville, and this is where you're going to be a professional quarterback now. And just Nico definitely seemed like he had a pretty big California vibe to him. So I'm sure California kid dropped into Knoxville, there was a little bit of a culture shock, culture adjustment that maybe never got through. So maybe to his credit, to not give him full credit, but maybe there was just a degree of he just wanted to get back closer to home or something like that too. So it's I think both sides what they want out of it. I mean, Nico's losing money, but I mean, there has to be, I think UT's probably going to be better in the long run because I mean, he didn't really seem, to light the world on fire. And I feel like if, I think Josh Heupel, to give UT a little credit, I think he's shown he's a pretty good coach. Especially on the offensive side of the ball, he seems to know what he's doing. So if he felt they could live without Nico as quickly as they did, as quickly as they kind of dropped that thing, that's probably a good sign that, he had already decided this isn't what we thought it was going to be when we first brought him in to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's a good decision for the program, and I think it's probably a good look on college football going forward. Um, Staying in the realm of football, I've been loosely keeping up with the draft that starts tomorrow. Right?
Yep,
Um,
first round tomorrow night of the NFL draft.
we so as far as I know, and please correct me because I'm sure you've been keeping up way more with it. We're doing Cam Ward at one. Is that what we're still going with?
I mean, there has been no, official, but every outlet, everybody who would know, everybody who's had the report has said it's a done deal. They're going Cam Ward number one. I mean, the funniest wink wink giveaway that they've had was I think he himself was doing like a Fortnite stream last week, and somebody asked in the chat like, hey, you're about to be in the NFL. Who were like some of your favorite players? And he named like only Titans players, and then like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then a bunch
Yeah,
of Titans players, which Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are in a different level than anybody on the Titans right now. So there's definitely a little wink wink. I know where I'm going. Let me be nice to the upcoming things. So it seems like it's pretty much a done deal. Like, our general manager, coach, and owner, they had their pre-draft press conference yesterday, and they finally, came out and said they didn't say that's who we're drafting, but they said they've locked in on what they want to do with the pick. They're not looking to trade it. They're not looking to move out of one, which was kind of the other maybe last scenario that people were thinking maybe if somebody else wanted to move up to get somebody else, maybe they'd drop back a little bit and take Cam Ward maybe at 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that range. But it seems like they've kind of locked in, said, hey, we're sticking at one, and everybody's pretty much saying Cam Ward is the pick. You know, nothing's official till it's official, which I almost would rather see something crazy happen just because like I don't really know much. I only know what I've read and heard people say about Cam Ward. So, maybe he's good, maybe he's not. He's not a player that I'm like, he's going to save our franchise, but I'm willing to give him a chance. But at the same time, if we did something crazy and just out of nowhere went rogue and took somebody like Travis Hunter that nobody expected us to take after everybody's like, oh, it's Cam Ward, I would be like, heck yeah, that's just for the chaos of it. That'd be a little bit fun. But yeah, I'm happy the Titans are going to take Cam Ward. I think, Will Levis has some tools where he could have been a decent quarterback, but it just seems like that ship sailed here in Tennessee. So it's kind of the NFL is a quarterback league. If you don't have a quarterback, you're never going to be successful. So,
Yeah.
I know most of the stuff I've read is, that Cam Ward probably is a little bit behind the quarterbacks from last year's draft, but that he's far and away the best quarterback in this draft. And I'm just kind of like, I think we got to take a shot on a quarterback. I'm willing to like roll the dice, hope for the best, and because I've seen like crazy stuff where like his ceiling is Patrick Mahomes, his floor is some terrible quarterback that we don't even remember or something like that. So it's kind of
Will
all over the
Levis.
place when people are talking about him. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting for sure. But yeah, it does take some of the surprise and intrigue that comes with the NFL draft out when you're on the first overall pick and you kind of know where you're going. But it seems like from what I've read, like that seems to be like the like first like 5 to 6 picks. Like everybody's kind of already locked in. Like teams know what they're doing this year. There's not going to be really a whole lot of surprises or chaos until around pick like 6 or 7 or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of it seems like to be that's the curse of the Titans. So I think like both times in Titans franchise history that we've had the first overall pick, it was in a draft where everybody's like, yeah, this draft's not great. There's not a whole lot of great players in this draft. It's like, why can't we suck in a year where like Peyton Manning or Arch Manning or whoever next great quarterback coming through is going to be there? We always suck in a year where everybody's like, these players coming in, just there's not that many good ones. It's like, come on, suck in the year where you can get somebody good. Titans, come on, it's not that hard.
I've seen like a pretty general discourse through like online stuff, and you can tell me if I kind of got the wrong idea. But it seemed like most people wanted to trade out and get Abdul Carter, and then kind of build some more depth pieces rather than taking that number one quarterback.
Yeah, I think that was especially right at the end of the season when you were kind of looking ahead before like free agency and like kind of the other moves and stuff started happening in the NFL offseason. That was kind of where I think most Titans fans, most people looking at the team, from an outside perspective, we're kind of like that would probably be the best scenario. There was like a few veteran quarterbacks that they were like, maybe go get this guy, get that guy, kind of bridge till you get your really guy of the future type thing. And I don't really know if it was like, Cam Ward just started to win the Titans over in the pre-draft process, the workouts, the combine, stuff like that. And they started to see something there that maybe they weren't seeing right at the start of the offseason. Or I've also read some stuff where just like nobody really was willing to trade up. Like that was the other thing was like the players there, weren't necessarily anybody that anybody was like hungry to come up and get. So it was kind of like there wasn't as much of a trade market as maybe there is in other years. Like the last time we had the first overall draft pick, we traded with the Rams because they wanted to come up and get Jared Goff. We ended up drafting Jack Conklin, who was a solid offensive lineman for us for like 5 years, but didn't end up re-signing him. He went to Cleveland, had another good solid few years there. But it just seems like it was a weird year because the draft overall. I was listening to a podcast earlier today where this draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah had a really good way, I thought, of like kind of summing up the entire draft, like all the players. He said, there's a lot of good starters in this draft. There's not many stars in this draft. So there's going to be players that'll be solid, that'll, bring something to whatever team takes them. This isn't a draft that's like loaded with like, these are guys that are going to be Pro Bowlers and like Super Bowl MVPs over the next few years and stuff like that. So, it is what it is. At the end of the offseason, I was definitely team trade back, team get as many picks as we can, take a player who's going to be a big impact player and, figure out, a bridge quarterback type deal. But once we got into the offseason, the more you thought about something, because it was like, do we really want to sign Sam Darnold? Do we really want to sign a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, people like that are kind of on the wrong side of their careers and stuff like that? Or do we want to just like take a shot on this young guy, see if he can be a spark that really like, launches the franchise into the next, whatever? Because that's kind of one of the weird things about the draft. And you just don't know. Like, it's like, NBA, I feel like is like, you're a basketball guy. Like, there's not really that many, especially now. Like, I feel like back in the day when people were taking like random players from Europe or high schoolers fresh out of high school, there's more, but it kind of feels like the top guys end up kind of being top guys unless they have injuries, kind of like Zion Williamson, where he's been injured almost his whole career. Like in the NBA, it's like if you're the top pick, if you're a top guy, you end up being a top guy. NFL is always kind of a crapshoot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the last two quarterbacks that went number one overall are still kind of question marks if they're good or not. Like Bryce Young from Alabama a couple years ago, Caleb Williams coming out of USC last year. Neither one of them has lit the world on fire in the NFL yet. So you
Yeah.
never know. And then you have a Patrick Mahomes who I don't even remember Patrick Mahomes playing in college football, and he ended up being a first round draft pick, and he's like the best player of all time now. So it's and Tom Brady, even crazier.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of him at Michigan, gets drafted in the sixth round, wins more Super Bowls than anybody ever. So that's one of the fun things about the NFL draft. One of the fun things about NFL is like you just don't know. Like these players could be the next great thing, or they might ruin your franchise for the next like 5 years. So it's a here we go, Titans. Let's see what happens with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I'm like, I think mainly because we're doing the show, but like I'm super excited to like follow along with it this year, and then like coming into next season, I'm super excited to actually like watch along and hopefully be able to go out to a game. I think last year I got like 200 level tickets for like three of them for $14 total, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's insane. I know whenever the new stadium gets built, that'll change. But anyways, I'm excited to follow along and watch the game day vlogs, watch the games. Uh, are you planning on doing anything on your channel for draft day? I know sometimes you do streams.
Yeah, I'll have something one way or the other because I don't exactly know what my plan for the draft is because it kind of depends on my work stuff. I've got like a potentially busy day at work tomorrow, but I've got tickets for there's supposed to be a draft party at Nissan Stadium tomorrow. I've got tickets for that. So if like it's a kind of a easy enough day where I'm just not beat to heck and working like an hour more than I plan on working, I'll probably come home, get dressed, go down to Nissan Stadium, and I'll probably do like a vlog of what the experience is like there if that's what I do. If I get home a little later and I'm like too beat to go out and do anything, I'll do like a home vlog where I'll do like a live stream, like a live watch along of the draft, kind of instant reaction to the shock and surprise. What are the Titans going to do with the number one overall pick? But uh, talk about more about like what I think, what, kind of react to what they're saying about whatever happens there. So I will do something one way or the other with the draft, whether it's a pre-recorded vlog of like the draft party or it's a live watch along of the draft itself. I'll post something, either to social media or to YouTube itself once I know more because I'm like, don't really know what my plan is yet, but there is a plan to do something. I'm planning to do something. I don't know what that something is yet.
Sweet. So guys, make sure to check that out. Um, Stepping outside of football and back into football, let's look at next week against Chicago Fire. How are we feeling about this? I remember last year we won against them. Uh, how do they look this year? Do you know if they made any big differences in the off season, or are they the same team pretty much? What do you think is going to happen going into this next game?
Yeah, they've been kind of pretty bad throughout most of Nashville SC's tenure in MLS. So they've kind of been a team you kind of would be excited to have on your schedule and kind of say, okay, this is a good spot to get a result here. But they've been a little bit better than this year. I was looking at some of their scores right before we went on, and they've kind of not been too different. They haven't beat anybody really impressive. They've got, a lot of draws, a lot of wins. They're kind of like right in the middle. They're about two spots behind us in the table. The biggest thing they have going for them, the biggest change they made was they brought in Greg Berhalter as their new coach, new director of football, whatever the title is they gave him, where he's basically running the entire operation now. It seems like they haven't like fully like, taken the steps to reset the franchise, but it's kind of phase one of that is bringing him in as the new coach. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic from that perspective is that we've got BJ Callahan, going against Greg Berhalter head to head, the protege versus the mentor, the teacher versus the student type of matchup. Just kind of looking at results, it kind of looks like we're probably a little bit further ahead. Maybe we obviously already had Haney Mokhtar, we had Zimmerman, we've got a little bit better roster for BJ to inherit than what Callahan had or what Greg Berhalter inherited in Chicago. They had Sheridan Shaqiri, who had been a good player in Europe for years, but definitely was one of those kind of washout late stage European players who kind of just seemed like they came to MLS to get a paycheck, never really did much here. They finally cut ties with him this offseason. They made a few moves to start moving in the right direction, but I think they're kind of in like the early phase of restructuring and rebuilding their franchise. So I think it's a match we should probably win, but it'll be interesting to see, given how well Greg Berhalter and BJ Callahan know each other, who's gonna have that secret ingredient that oh, I know what BJ's gonna do here, oh, I know what Greg's gonna do here, that could potentially surprise us and change the match. So I think just BJ versus Greg is kind of the most interesting storyline of this match to me.
Yeah, I had no clue about that, so that is interesting. Do you think that they're going to be able to get inside each other's head more, and it's going to be kind of a come down to a competition of like management, or
I don't know because I don't know how much I don't think they have like any kind of animosity between each other because I mean BJ
yeah,
was the
yeah,
interim
of course,
coach when Greg was not immediately brought back by U.S. Soccer, and then when Greg finally did get brought back by U.S. Soccer, BJ stayed on, was still his assistant coach. I think they're friendly with each other. I don't think there's going to be any kind of like head games or anything like that. But what do they know about each other? There's stuff that we don't know that they will know about each other that could play into the matchup. But
yeah,
I think just because we had a better roster to begin with, we're a little bit further ahead in that kind of reset than what they are. Home game for us, it's a match I feel like we should get a result. This is one of those we've talked a few times, like when do you hit the panic button? When do you have concerns? Like this is one where like if we don't get a good result against Chicago at home, um, I will have a little bit of concern, especially because if we still see the same kind of struggles from some of our key players to not, if Sam's not scoring, if Hani's not scoring, I will start. I'm not gonna hit a panic button, but I'll bring the panic button to the desk and kind of have it on hand in case I need it, type thing. But and we haven't heard anything yet. I think tomorrow, probably when we first hear the kind of updates, terms of injuries, availability, and stuff like that. If Walker's back, I'm gonna feel a lot better. Obviously, if Walker's back, but we don't know. That's one of those things. The concussion things, you never know. It's till I dealt with players who had concussions when I was a coach. It's literally a thing where like they can seem 100% normal. They can seem like, they're the healthiest person in the world, like nothing's wrong with them. They go do the concussion test. They do things the physios and the medical staff put them through. Anything flags is potentially a risk. They're going to be staying out. And that's the right way to do it. But at the same time, if we can get him back, that would be a huge benefit. Because, the one thing about concussions is it's not like a hamstring injury or a muscle injury where you kind of have to like slowly work your way back up. Like, concussion, you can kind of be doing your fitness stuff. You can kind of be doing your stuff to keep your body ready, your other stuff ready, and you can kind of jump in, I think, a little bit more quickly. I don't know if they want to rush him back in. Like, it's weird with a defender because, like, I feel like a defender, you either start a defender or you don't. An attacking player, like, you might say, hey, we'll only give them 10 minutes off the bench, but you're not always going to, like, say, hey, we're going to give this defender 10 minutes off the bench just to get them back up to speed type of thing like that. So if he comes back, I'll feel 100% better about this result, but I do think it's a match we should probably win. Just kind of looking at the outside, looking in the history of Chicago, what they've done so far this season, what we've done so far this season. Home match, I'm thinking we should get a result here.
do you have a scoreline prediction?
It's hard to give one because like I honestly can't name a single player on Chicago Fire right now. Like this is one of the things like that sneaks up on me on MLS sometimes is like we come up against a team. I'm like, I just realized I don't know a single player on their team. They might have, which actually there was a report, I don't know if it was this week or last week, that they are now kind of the front runner. Like they're the one making the most aggressive moves to potentially sign Kevin De Bruyne from Manchester City at the end of the season, but that wouldn't be till the summer, so he's not going to just
Yeah,
randomly show up and come out at Geodis Park and be like, hey, I'm here, I'm playing for Chicago Fire. So um, knowing that they don't have, I know they've made some signs. I know they're trying to get things going in the right direction, but I feel like if they had anybody that I was worried about, I would know about it. So, and this might be famous last words, but I'll go 3-1 Nashville SC because I feel like we'll still find a way to give up a goal at some point in time. Somebody's going to get a penalty kick at some point in time. That's just the tradition of a Nashville SC match this season.
Yeah,
So I'll say 3-1 Nashville SC.
that's kind of what I was feeling as well. I was gonna say 2-1, uh, 2-1 or 3-1, just because I mean, it's hard to be confident that we don't concede a goal this season. But I'm excited for this match. I think it'll be a nice watch after last week. I think I'll be able to watch the entire game and not turn it off and do literally anything else. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I don't, once again, I hate to even like, it's one of the bad things about like talking about the team and like doing predictions because you always just like, I'm going to jinx it if I say anything. But I think you're right. I think like one way or the other, I don't think this is going to be a match where we're all just going to be like, I got to go home. This one stinks. Let's just wash our hands and go home. Like, even if it's like a 1-1 draw or even like some kind, we lose somehow, I feel like it'll be, I don't think we're going to have like a crazy lopsided random like 15 minutes where we give up like 3 or 4 goals or something like that. So I think it'll be close. 2-1. Honestly, I could probably see that being because maybe I should be pump the brakes on saying we're going to score 3 goals when we're just not. We're creating a lot of goals, like goal chances, just not scoring the goals. I think I saw something like. I actually think I took a screenshot of something that I wanted to remember. Just let me see if I can find it real quick because I think there was some crazy stat about like Sam Surge where he's at right now in terms of like his. Okay, yeah, I got it right here. Okay, so Sam Surge's goals XG total is -3. So he scored 3 fewer goals than the expected goals he should have scored this season, which is kind of it's kind of a crazy stat. But at the same time, it's like if he scores those 3 more goals, that's a huge difference in our seasons. And I feel like he's a hot and cold type player where once he gets going, once he gets those goals, it's going to get going and we'll look a lot better. Which is why I'm not too concerned with him, which why I have not been like, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like I know some people on the internet I've seen like I, I, our fan base, man. I feel like sometimes I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like there's people who are ready to send Sam Surridge and Hani Mukhtar off to Cuba or something like that. They're just ready to be done with both of them because they're not like scoring 12 goals a match or something like that. I'm like, this is soccer.
yeah,
I don't know if it's because like our fan base is relatively new and relatively young, experience. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm just too optimistic sometimes. But I'm like we can pump the brakes a little bit. I think give time. Let's give some time. I think I even mentioned on the watch along I was doing where I was like especially with Sam, this is a completely different style of play than what he was brought into play.
yeah,
So there's growing pains. There's adjustment period for him where he was brought in to just be tall guy in the box. We're gonna whip in a bunch of crosses and you just try to bang in as many as you can. Now we're playing a little bit more free flowing, a little more passing, a little more build up style play. So I'm not gonna hit the panic button yet, but I probably am now going back towards your prediction and say I will say 2-1 because it feels crazy now that I thought about it to say, hey, we're gonna score 3 goals out of nowhere. But I think once the goals come, they're gonna start coming more. I don't know. I that was a pause.
yeah. That's exactly what I was saying. But yeah, I mean, I think the Sam Surge, like obviously that's a whole conversation right now, but I think people forget that real soccer is like not really like FIFA. You can't expect
Mm-hmm.
to 3 goals every single game, and that's something as like a new fan I had to kind of check myself on a couple of times. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we won this game was 0-0, dude. This is boring. I'm never watching this again. It's like it's a bit different than what you do with your video games, man. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's important to know. Breaking news, actually, I just got a notification. Jalen Brunson won the Clutch Player of the Year for the NBA. So there's that. It's a little off topic to Nashville SC, but we should have the MVP by next week. I think it's going to be SGA or it's definitely SGA or Jokic. Sorry, I did NBA brain right now. We're in playoffs, so that's all that I've been like really thinking about. So
Gambling talk. We've brought up a little gambling talk over the episodes we've done. I just the gray in the beard. I actually placed at the start of the season a bet on SGA to be MVP because somebody that I hate predicted Jokic to be MVP,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, who's the second most favored person to be MVP? And it was SGA, and I was like, I'm taking him just because I don't want to take the same thing this guy I think is an idiot took. So I was like, as the season went on, and it was like more and more people were like, oh yeah, I think SGA is going to win the MVP. I was like, I barely know who he is, but I am so glad I thought that guy was an idiot and went against him. So I'm gonna make like $30 if this all works out because placed like a $1 bet on like SGA to be MVP. So come on, SGA.
I think that looks very good. Honestly, it's I was expecting him or Jokic to get it, and then whoever didn't get MVP probably was going to get Clutch Player. Neither of them got Clutch Player of the Year, so that's going to be interesting to see. But I think I think he's going to get it just because he's done a lot of crazy work in OKC. Jokic has already won MVP a few times, uh, which I think skill and output they're pretty similar, honestly, on like terms based of like what should be considered a good NBA player. They're pretty like similar level, but I think the fact that Jokic has won it multiple times before, the Nuggets aren't really as like exciting or productive this year. So I think SGA is gonna be able to win him based on those factors. Should those factors play into MVP award? Who knows? But that's what you get whenever you get people voting for it. So, um,
Yeah, the vibe I get from just my kind of loose following of the NBA is that most people think Jokic is probably the best player in the NBA just year in year out. But it's like you said, you don't want to give the same guy the MVP every year. And like sometimes you have a year like this where the Thunder were the top seed, they were the best team in the West. So reward the best player on the best team type of thing is what happens a lot of time with the MVP award.
yeah, exactly. So if Shea doesn't get it, I would consider like I would think that that would be a bad call. But if neither of them get it, then I don't know what the hell's going on. Um, but yeah, so to wrap things up, we I do a shout out to a local Nashville business every week. This week I'm switching it up to a Nashville musician I found. His name's Ryman. He his stage name's based off the auditorium, or it's called an Ryman Auditorium, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Ryman.
So he just came out with a song called "Lose." It's really good. He's a young guy, so go check him out. Matt, do you have any shout outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'll pull in just as there's a place in Nashville. I wish I could go there more, but I'm just rarely in that part of town. It's called Red's Hot Chicken. I don't know if I
Mm.
keep doing hot chicken ones or not, but it's right by the Parthenon. It's a little walk up shack. It's literally like a takeout window. It's you know it goes against the grains because you got to pick Prince's almost, or you got to pick like Bolton's or something like that for most people. But for me, Red's Hot Chicken has my favorite hot chicken because like I love not only like when it's good like regular hot chicken, but like they have the most creative uses of hot chicken as well. Like they've got a hot chicken crunch wrap. They've got
Mm.
like a hot chicken mac and cheese bowl. They've got ways where they like take it instead of just doing just like here's a couple tenders or here's a wing and a thigh. Let's present it a different way. I love that place. I go there every year during. It's one of the places I'm always going to go during like hot chicken week.
Mm.
Anytime I'm over in West End, Parthenon area, because it's literally right by the Parthenon. So it's a great spot where you can like go get food there, especially on a nice day. Take it right into Centennial Park and have a nice little picnic. I'll shout out Red's Hot Chicken. That'll be my shout out this week.
Sweet. Yeah, so go check them out, give them some business. Uh, thank you guys for coming and listening to us. We apologize for the video being late. I had a bunch of senior college stuff happening, so I had to delay it a little bit. Uh,
No, I barely even remembered the game we played. I was like having to like my old man brain. I was like, well, who did we play last week? Was that Seattle or what game was that?
I think I also did it, but mainly I tried to forget because it was so traumatic.
Yeah, it was almost like one of those. We're like, hey, we shouldn't have even talked about that game. Let's just push it. We're too far away. Let's talk about the positives.
we we got beat terribly, and we didn't even have someone like sawing wood. So that part really sucked. But check us out on YouTube, Wormy and Uncle Mad. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, all the other good stuff. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Support the backline.